Hello and welcome to Explaining Acro. I'm Ben and this is Cassandra, and today we're going to be talking to you about Too High. The first thing we want to do is talk about the position of the flyer's foot on the base's shoulder. So if you imagine that my hands are my feet, I want to take the arch of my foot and put it on the base's trap. My heels are going to be off the back of the base a little bit, and that's okay. My toes are going to be just on the inside of the shoulder, and I'm going to be turning them out a little bit like a penguin's feet. For our first progression, we're going to start with the base sitting on the floor in a bit of a straddle position. This is going to give us a bit of extra lateral stability. If you're not comfortable sitting on the floor directly, I recommend elevating your hips using a cushion or some yoga blocks or something like that. Before the flyer even stands on me, I'm going to make sure my core is nice and braced.
Flyers, we take hands and then we place our foot in the hip crease of the base, and then we gently put weight into that.
I'm making sure to push up nice and strong with my left arm so the flyer has something to push into, and I'm moving my head very slightly to the right so she has a place to put her foot.
Flyers, we want to use this opposite arm to help us up. So as we step, we're going to be pouring our weight into that opposite arm.
As she stands up, I'm pushing up with that right hand as well and making space for her foot. I'm reaching up to the back of her knee and pulling down on the calves. I'm also going to push my head back very slightly into the front of her shins to establish an additional point of contact.
Flyers, once we're up here, we want to think about dropping the heels, turning the toes out, and squeezing our glutes, keeping our weight right over the top of the base.
To come back down, we're going to start by retaking hands, starting with the left.
And then we step back to the hip the same way we went up, and then to the ground, holding hands the whole time.
Bases. We want to avoid keeping the hands low and pulling our flyer off balance. We want to ensure we are pulling straight down and not pushing the flyer's knees forward, as this can make balance difficult and isn't as aesthetically pleasing. Flyers. Make sure you step close to the base's hip and keep your hips close to their center of mass. If your hips are too far from the base's center of mass, you will make it much more difficult. For this progression and every other one we're going to cover in this video, you may want to consider working with a spotter. For the final progression, where we go all the way up to standing too high, we do not recommend doing this at all without a spotter if you've not done it before. Spotting all the progressions uses a similar technique. As a spotter, I'm following at a slight angle behind the flyer. I'm keeping my body close to the flyer's hips. As the flyer stands up, if I'm unable to reach the hips, I'm going to move my hands to the flyer's thighs so that I can add some additional stability. If the flyer is coming down, I'm going to take my hands off of the leg immediately so that I don't interfere with your ability to use their legs to land. I'm shifting my support to the flyer's midsection in order to help keep them upright. Before we climb all the way up to too high, we're going to start by first climbing to the base's hips. This is going to provide some practice for the first step of too high, as well as focusing on stability for bases. So to start, I'm going to take a stance that's a little bit wider than my normal squat stance, and I'm going to be nice and low so that there's room for the flyer's foot near my hip.
Flyers, we take our base's hand and we put the arch of our foot close to that base's hip, and then we step up, trying to lean over the top of the base.
I'm making sure to keep my left arm nice and high and providing something for her to push into. As she steps across, I'm going to push that second hand up to practice for the too high, and then we're going to find this little balance here. I'm pushing back slightly with my back and my head to establish some additional points of contact.
Flyers, once we're up here, we're straightening our legs, gently leaning into the base's back and keeping our core tight.
To come back down, we're going to take hands.
Flyers, we lean back over that first leg we stepped on, lowering to the ground, holding hands the whole time.
All right, now we're ready to put everything together. So bases, as before, we're going to be starting in this nice low squat position with room for the flyer's foot. This time, as the flyer's coming up, I'm going to wait until the foot is on my left shoulder, and then I'm going to stand up with the flyer. My left leg is going to stay where it is. I'm going to be pushing through this right leg in my hands in order to help the flyer stand up.
Flyers, we take our base's hands, we step our foot nice and close to that hip, step over the top of the base, pouring weight into that opposite arm.
Waiting until the flyer's over my shoulder, and then we stand up together.
Put our feet close to the base's neck, and we stand tall.
And I'm just pulling down with my hands on the tops of the flyer's calves and pushing my head gently into the shins.
And flyers, as we're up here, think about turning our toes out, dropping our heels down the back of our base, and squeezing our glutes.
To come back down, we're going to retake hands, starting with the left. I'm going to step back into the squat position.
And then we step back to the hip, staying over the top of the base as we go back to the floor.
As you grow comfortable with Too High, you can start to explore additional range of motion. We recommend that you begin with some gentle twists. Walking is an excellent variation which improves both general fitness and acrobatic ability. This can be led by either the base or the flyer, and practicing both versions is helpful. Spins and turns can be incorporated for extra challenge and variation. Base squats and eventually jumps can be added in as well, with an emphasis on control, particularly when lowering. Thanks so much for watching our video on Too High. If you have any questions or success that you'd like to share, please do that in the comment section down below. Part of our channel's mission is to provide free educational acro content to everyone. If there are skills you'd like to see in the future, please leave those suggestions. And if you found this helpful, please leave a like or subscribe to the channel for more free content in the future.
Trying to bring some color to my face. On camera.
Evidence.